Glad to see all of you here. I walked in here, I said, man, I should just wore my Astro stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. Too soon? Too soon? I'm sorry. Too soon? Oh, my bad. I'm sorry y'all couldn't hit Verlander. My bad, I'm sorry. Anytime I do fly back to Los Angeles, I do wear my Astro stuff. In fact, I was in the George Lopez golf tournament in May, and of course, George Lopez is a huge Dodgers fan. And we were texting back and forth during the game, and I said, and then after game 7, a little heartbreak for George, I said, George, I have something special for your golf tournament. And George, and normally we have this shoe contest in terms of different shoes. I said, no, George, I got something better. And as the months progressed, I started adding stuff to it. So when the day came, I rolled up to the golf tournament at the country club here in LA. Had 4 Astros car flags on the car. I get out of the car with this huge foam hat. Then I had on the old school Astros rainbow jersey with a belt buckle that was the size of a satellite dish, the old satellite dishes. Had some cognac boots on, and then we even went on eBay to get the rainbow stripes, and I put them on a pair of white Sean John pants. And he had the nerve to pair me with tweed, which was fine because Verlander. And when he shanked it, he would go, damn, I still can't hit Verlander. And so we had a always a great time. So we love playing around and live with each other. And so trust me, you can see those videos on social media. And then at the post party, I made Reed come on stage and dance with me to Deep in the Heart of Texas. Yes, it was very painful for them. See, and George said, I gotta give you credit. When your team wins, you will rub the hell out of it in our faces. And I said, and had the Dodgers won, you would have been on my ass the whole day. He said, you are correct. But it's glad to see all of you here. Brian, thank you very much for the introduction. Shakola Thompson, thank you for inviting me as well, extending the invitation. I met her at the NAACP Image Awards, as one of the volunteers, and I'm often here in LA. But I'm gonna do this here because I could have wore the gears. Because y'all really comfortable. My man got the polo shirt on over here. You about to go bowling? Are we comfortable? I said, I got the cufflink. I'm glad I didn't wear it. Normally I got an ascot after 5 o'clock. I would have ran me the hell out of here. But no, glad to be here. Glad to see all of you here. I'm glad to be back here. I was attending Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, which is happening right now, and I'm literally, yeah, clap. Somebody made it to a pre-party time. Yeah. And I'll be back on the flight tomorrow. Of course, they have the closing dinner, and Reverend William Barber is going to be speaking tomorrow night, and he is going to be, of course, speaking about where we stand in our politics and in this country. And last night, I got in here about 1 a.m. from D.C., took a 10 o'clock flight, and I was constantly, I couldn't go to sleep literally for 3 hours. And the problem I have is when an idea pops into my head, my brain just takes off, and then I know it's going to be a while before I can go to sleep. And I don't write down notes. I don't do all of those different things. The different themes that I sort of play around with. But I let God be God, and I sort of do what I do. And then in terms of being able to pick things up when I walk into rooms, when I meet people. But last night, I was just turning, and all of a sudden, I remembered, I thought about a song that, I don't sing, I get paid to talk, I don't sing. Reverend Charles Jenkins from Chicago, had a hit song, and there was an intro to the song that I love, and I used that as the basis of a commentary shortly after the election of Agent Orange. Y'all know who the hell I'm talking about. I'm sorry, Comrade Agent Orange. And as I went, it immediately jumped into my spirit, and I began to literally lay out what I'm about to talk about. But I want to play this for you so you can actually hear it the way it came into my head, because this is a part of the song that he has. So press play.
Listen, when the enemy is swinging at you, You can't go out or fall out. You got to swing back. When the enemy's attacking you, you can't give up. You can't throw in the towel. But you got to get yourself together. And you got to come hard. Am I talking to any real people in the room? So when the enemy comes at you, you got to know that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty to the pulling down the stronghold. You got some weapons, and you can't take it laying down, but you got to fight back. So when the enemy comes at you, you got to say, you know what, devil? I'm not going to break down. I'm not going to fall down. I'm not going to go down. I'm going to get my Holy Ghost swag. And I'm going to say, peace, be more.
Turn to your neighbor, please. To the left. You by yourself, and you just talk to everybody. Say, this means war. I think you got an idea of what I'm about to talk about. We are living in a time in this nation where evil is personified by folks in leadership who claim to stand for the working class, but who literally on a daily basis put into place policies and procedures that are about burying the worker class. We are in a moment in this nation where folks are fearful of how the country is changing before our very eyes. If you listen to folks like Tucker Carlson, who somehow can't figure out how diversity actually makes us a better nation. When you listen to folks who want to deny people at the border because they want to blame them for the reason their towns no longer look the way they do and operate the way they did some 30, 40 years ago. When you have folks who want to attack demographic changes in America as somehow being wrong, when the reality is by 2039, the majority of the working class in America will be people of color. By 2043, the majority of America will be a nation that is people of color, which means that the standards by which we have governed ourselves will change because the worldview changes. When you have men in this country who are angry with the Me Too movement and Time's Up movement, and they literally say stuff like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hire a woman, as if somehow what comes with hiring a woman is mean they have to be sexually harassed. I don't quite understand that idea. And so what is happening in this country is that we are changing. There are those who don't like the change happening in America. There are folks who want us to return to a period of the 1940s and 1950s, when you hear the phrase, make America great again, for folk who look like me, that period of time wasn't too great. If you're a woman, that period of time wasn't too great, when the idea was you got to stay in your place. And so the reason I began this with this means war is because so many people are walking around and they're saying, well, things will change after 2018 midterm elections, things will change after the year 2020. But the reality is we are on a collision path with 2043, which is when the demographics will shift and 53% of America will be a nation, majority of people of color, 47% will be white. Into motion. And so when you look at the policies that are being impacted right now, and I deal with this every single day in the conversations that I have with members of the United States Senate, members of the U.S. House, when I travel around the country, when I'm in North Carolina, when I'm in all different places, and I'm listening to folks who literally say they care about the future of the nation, but they really don't care when you look at the policies they pass. The show that we just launched, Roland Unfiltered, I appreciate the fact that our first underwriter, American Federation of State and County Municipal Employees, Lee Saunders. I met with Lee, and TV One canceled my show News One Now, and the last day of our show, we had a conversation. We met that day, December 21st, 24 hours later. He said, Roland, we're in because your voice is important. And I said, Lee, one of the things that we will be dealing with is what is really happening to workers in this country. When we have folks who say, I'm for the working class, but you pass a $1.1 trillion tax cut, and they say, well, oh, it will trickle down into your pockets, and there are people who are still going, I'm still waiting like manna from heaven because nothing has trickled down yet. When the happiest people in this country are really those who prefer to have productivity high but wages low. When you have these conversations and folks say, oh, no, but trust me, we pass it, workers are going to get lots of money, and then CEOs made it perfectly clear that's not going to happen because we're going to get massive stock buybacks, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And then there are those who actually fall for the okie doke. I talked to workers from Carrier in Indiana who were happy when they said, Trump saved our jobs. 7 months later, Carrier said, thank you for all the tax breaks, thank you for all the freebies, we still eating. And we're seeing this happening all across the country because what we have witnessed has been a constant attack and an erosion on, frankly, what really has made America great, what has created the middle class, what has allowed for people to come out of poverty, to be able to come into a situation where they can send their kids to jobs. And that really has been the expansion of labor in America. What has happened, though, is that over the past 30 years, you can put the word labor, a 5-letter word, right next to all the cuss words you can't say on television, because that's really what has happened. If you say labor, people go, oh my God, you're the devil. When you look at the numbers, how all of a sudden they've gone down across this country, and you have, of course, the Supreme Court decision, the Janus decision, and it was by design for President Obama not to have that appointee to be placed on the court because they understood what was coming down. All of these are actions that were clear. When you look at our history, when you see families, folks who could not necessarily go to college, who were forbidden to go to college, who didn't have the money to go to college, but to be able to get a job, and to be able to have a living wage, to be able to buy a home, and begin. We want you to be loyal, you will be loyal to us, but this nation has really become, it's about me, myself, and I. How much money can I make, and how much can I take from you and force you to accept what's left? And while all of this has been happening, we've had folks who then begin to attack when it comes to opportunities for college, when it comes to where we live, and begin to redefine what it means to be an American, what it means to have the American dream. And then we now see how we have the greatest disparity of wealth in the history of this nation. But what has been happening over the last few years is that people have been realizing that their voices have not been stilled by those in power. We have folks who are now saying, in order for us to do what's right, we are going to have to use our voices, but not just use our voices on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, but literally going old school, and that means going door to door, going house to house, going person to person to say, we must be willing to take back what is ours. Last night in New York City, they had their primary, and there were 6 members on the Democratic side who aligned together to give power to Republicans to deny the makeup there, and all 6 of them lost last night. Beaten by regular, ordinary folks who did not believe, who would have been involved in politics. When you see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a 28-year-old woman who said, I'm just going to go door to door, take down a 20-year incumbent, All she did was do what folks used to do, and that is say, I don't have enough money, I can't buy ads, but what I can do is I can knock on doors and talk to folks person to person. Just yesterday, I sat with 3 people. Andrew Gilliman from Florida, Stacey Abrams from Georgia, Ben Jealous from Maryland. And to think that in the history of America since Reconstruction, there have only been 2 African Americans ever elected governor, and that we're living in a period where 3 are actually running right now and could win in 52 days, that tells you America in 2018 is not America in 1958. You know it's something when Willie Nelson, who no one can confuse as a conservative, does his first political campaign with Beto O'Rourke in Texas. And I did get a kick out of reading the story today where they say a lot of Willie Nelson's fans were upset with Willie Nelson. And I'm going, y'all know Willie been smoking weed for a long time. Willie created progressive. So I got a kick out of that, and I tweeted this morning, I said, y'all, Willie Nelson's 85 years old. He really don't give a damn if y'all don't buy his music. And so we're seeing this sea shift, because what we're seeing is that we're seeing, even in Oklahoma, but we're seeing teachers who say, you don't give us, all of a sudden teachers are going, wait a minute, there can't be no school without us. Yes. And when they begin to make those demands, and then when they begin to tell the governor of West Virginia, the raise is not enough, we won't come back, they begin to force that through. That's because that's called people power. That's people realizing that they have power. And I can tell you, after Obama won in 2009, I would be on an airplane, in a bus station, I'll be at a train station, and people come up to me and they would say, man, I'm so excited, but I don't know what to do. And I would go, what do you mean? And they say, well, I just want to do something. I said, well, what's the one thing you care about? And a guy would go, education. I said, well, start there. And we have been told all this. They had billions of dollars. There was no way in the world they were going to be able to change this system. Yet when you see folks running who are barely spending any money on ads, on television, but they're putting it on the ground and they win, that is proving what happens. And that is, if you care enough about people, people are going to respond to your message and they are going to stand with you. Which means that as we operate in these spaces, we must think beyond just the folks in this room. Because there are people who are outside of these walls who have been waiting for many of you to come knock on their door, to come sit with them, whether they are in a union or not, because they need somebody who is willing to give them hope and inspiration and to let them know that the impossible is indeed possible. We are willing to stand with you, and what is it that you want, and how do you want to change your community, whether it is education, whether it is roads, whether it is bridges, whether it is parks, whether it is sewer systems, and get them to understand that when you have people who then begin to push, I'm not moving from this seat. And what's interesting about that, and when I talk to people around this country, you look at all folks in this room, and look around at each other. Do you understand that literally if I had 5 tables stand up, that there are more people who would stand up at those 5 tables than who were sitting in the basement of a church in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955? That a handful of people who launched a one-day boycott that evolved into a 382 boycott, which then led to a 13-year struggle to redefine what it means to be an American. How even if you go to India today, you can drive along Martin Luther King Drive. You think about when they were in Poland in the stockyards, they were singing "We Shall Overcome." When you think about the Arab Spring, they were wearing signs that said "I am a man," the same signs they were wearing in Memphis. That was started because a handful of people sitting in a church actually cared enough to say, we want a change in the way this country is moving. I was on a plane last night, and we were talking about the guy next to me, we were talking politics, and he's into real estate, and we were talking about Chicago, and I told him even about Fred Hampton, who was assassinated by police in Chicago. If Fred Hampton had sat with white men from West Virginia who created chapters called White Panthers, and he said that if this man who was a Black Panther is fighting for the same thing I care about, I'm willing to stand with him. It's a piece of our history folks don't like to talk about because we even had a different story told about the Black Panthers. And think about that. All of a sudden you have white men in West Virginia calling themselves White Panthers, standing next to a 26-year-old Fred Hampton calling himself a Black Panther. No wonder J. Edgar Hoover was freaking the hell out. Because in American history, when we always had fusion politics, and that is politics where people of like minds, like issues came together, then you saw change. It happened in North Carolina after Reconstruction, where fusion politics changed what was happening in that particular state, and they redefined that particular state. When you think about Dr. King's Poor People's Campaign, when the original 25 people met there, he said, I want there to be black and white and Native American and Latino in the same room. When you look at what Reverend William Barber has been doing with repairs of the breach all across the country, not just going to the South, but going to Kansas and going to Idaho. I actually met two white women who started the North Carolina NAACP chapter in the hills of North Carolina, and they said, I bet you ain't never met two white women who were the founders of the NAACP chapter. But it was because after they led Moral Mondays, they said, you are fighting for the same issues we're fighting for. And Reverend Barber told me that he was at a parade. He said, Roland, and a redneck walked up to me with a Confederate flag draped around his neck. And when he walked up to me, tears were coming down his eyes. And he said, I must thank you because you were fighting to save our rural hospital. Reverend Barber said, now Roland, I'm still working to get that damn flag from around his neck. But for him to acknowledge at the head of the NAACP was fighting for his health care says a lot about where we are in this country. And so when folks begin to say, let's divide folks based upon race, based upon class, based upon gender, no, what makes us great is when people say, if you white and you broke and I'm black and I'm broke, damn it, broke is broke. If you a woman and you don't have health care, I'm a man, I don't have health care, it don't mean a damn thing if you got a uterus and I don't. Both of us sick as hell. If you have been frozen out of jobs because of your gender, I'm being frozen out of jobs because of my race, that means we got to break some ceilings. What I'm laying out is that when we begin to look at how we are alike, begin to look at how we are actually in the same battle to fight the forces in this country, we must cast aside the things that are separating us and dividing us and realize either we go up together or we go down together. Either we stand with one another or we get run over by other folks. And I know there might be some folks sitting here right now, you're holding on to some stuff that you got from your mama and your dad. Oh, I know. I can see it on some of your faces. Some of you doing that thing called a butt dance. That's when you sit in that chair and you're like, damn, it's getting uncomfortable in here. And so you start moving in that chair. Don't worry about it. I make it happen to people on TV all the time. You'll be okay. But what I'm saying is that what we must recognize is that as long as we are being destroyed by power and money and greed, none of us stand a chance to move ahead. And when people are willing to set aside nonsense, and when people are willing to set aside differences, when people are willing to sit down at the table of brotherhood and actually say, I may have grown up and had never seen somebody black, I may have grown up and never seen somebody white, but maybe if we actually talk to one another, we might realize we like the same things. See, I find it amazing how we can go to sports stadiums and watch a game together, how we can go to comedy clubs and laugh together, how we can go to a concert and dance together, but when it's time to work together, folks act like somehow there's a huge wall that's going between us when actually it's not. The only thing that is stopping us from advancing with fusion politics is because we are holding on to those slights and those differences and things that we were trained and taught. And at some point, somebody has to decide, I'm going to break the generational curse that has existed and say we are in this thing together and we're going to work together. And the only way that happens is when somebody decides right here, right now, I am willing to start this process. I'm willing to go beyond the superficial. And what I mean by that is the fact that the workplace is really an involuntary place. What it means is I can't really determine whether you get hired or not. So people say, oh, no, we get along. They say, look at this room. They go, oh, look at Brian. Brian's white, his assistant's black, and oh my God, we're sitting together. But then when you start asking people, who do you go to lunch with? Who do you invite to your house for dinner? Then stuff begins to change. Reverend Jim Wallace, when he gets invited to folks' house, you know what he does? He likes to go look at the books on their wall. Then he likes to look at the pictures on their table. Then he looks at their DVD collection and their artwork to see if what they proclaim they actually live in. If there's somebody in this room, and you know I'm talking to you, you must decide today that I can live a different life and I can change where I'm going. And when that happens, we then begin to realize that we, as a collective, can stare down forces of evil. We can put on our spiritual armor. We can look folk in the eye, just like that sister who did in Louisiana, where they had police officers with their batons and their shields and guns, and she stood there and said, I will not be moved because I am standing here fighting because Black Lives Matter. How can we praise Tiananmen Square when that young man stood there in front of that tank, then we are unwilling to stand in front of tanks in America, and you take on the spirit of the people of Montgomery? You don't have to ask anybody else's permission to go along in the battle. I said earlier that there were a handful of people sitting in a church basement in Montgomery that changed the world. Do understand that literally the number of people sitting in this room, you can create a level of change America has never seen since then if folks in this room are willing to work, if they're willing to go beyond what they've done now. And if you say, Roland, look, I've been in this union, I've been in this battle for 40 years, let me make it clear, as long as there's breath in your body, as long as your legs work, as long as your eyes work, you still are in the fight. You still are in the battle. Challenge and ask them, where did your mama work? Where did your daddy work? Where did your grandfather work? How did you get to where you got here? Don't all of a sudden shut down a door that was open for you. Because see, I understand how I got here. My brother was able to go to college, and my sister was able to go to college, all at Texas A&M, all at the same time. I understand how I got here, and I can't turn my back on how I got here, which means some of us must be willing to challenge folks and fight for what we know is right. And then if somebody says, I have done enough, you tell them, no, you must continue in this battle, continue fighting, continue challenging, continue to push. And like my frat brother Burton Woodson Tandy says, we are going to fight until hell freezes over, and then we're going to fight on the ice.